Good Friday morning and welcome back to Dakota News Now. It is now time for another edition of Owning Your Outdoors, and joining me as always is Doug Schroeder from Lewis. And Doug, we're continuing our chats with how to get your yard ready for fall. So what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about transplanting, dividing, or just moving your perennials and shrubs around your yard. A lot of times when you plant things, a few years later, your landscape changes and you decide, well, this might be good to change and move some things around. If you're going to do that spring and fall, you want cool and a little bit moisture. Doing it during the heat of the summer, all you're going to do is stress and potentially kill anything you try to move. But the time is right, and we'll get some things transplanted, and they'll be beautiful for the spring.
So you said cool and moisture, and we've been a little dry lately, so I'm assuming the first thing you want to do is go ahead and water the area around the plant.
I did. Last night I did water this daylily and cut it back just to so I could see the root ball of the whole plant. And as you can see, I've dug the root ball loose so that we can actually remove it from the ground. And with daylilies, I can split that into 6 different plants by just taking and splitting the plant apart. One thing I should mention, Aaron, if you're going to move plants, the rule of thumb is if it's spring blooming, move it, transplant it in the fall. If it's fall blooming, do it in the spring. So if you follow that rule of thumb, you should be successful in everything you do.
So once you get a little moisture around the plant, the next part you have the shovel, I'm assuming, is dig it out.
Right. As you can see, I've actually loosened the root ball all the way around, and it's ready to come out. What I did also, this is a rather large root ball, so I've actually split this into a couple different sections. So here is the section that I will be transplanting back in this spot. The rest of this will get moved to a different area. As you can see, there's a lot of roots to daylilies. One thing I will say about daylilies is they're hard to kill. So don't feel like you have to be real gentle with it. You can cut and feel pretty confident that that will all come back.
So we've got the plant out of there. Now we still have a hole in the ground too, so I think it's important that we should probably end up filling that in eventually, right?
We will. One thing you want to do is make sure your debris is out of the hole. So we want to take any rock that has fallen, any roots, and remove that all from the actual hole we're working with. So that's pretty good there. This is the plant we're going to put back in there. I am going to loosen some of that off of there, just so I can see what I do have good root there to deal with. And that looks pretty good. One thing I would suggest, we won't necessarily do it right now because of time, but loosen your soil down to about 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches all the way around. And you can amend this hole with manure, good topsoil for planting again. And I do have some topsoil over here. Nice section to go back in. When you plant it, make sure this here sets level with the soil around it, so that it should always be level with your ground. I'm going to use topsoil in this situation here. Another thing, Aaron, in the fall, like we said last week, don't encourage growth with adding a fertilizer of any sort. I know you say, I said you could amend with cow manure, but don't use other fertilizers to try to get it to grow. You really want the plant to focus on its roots for it to recuperate from your moving, your dividing, or whatever you've done to it. You don't want it to be encouraging to grow new growth at this point going into the fall. Use some landscape fabric around it and get the rock pulled back around. You won't even know it was done.
So what are we doing with this one over here?
Going to divide that. And Aaron, each one of these here, they're called fans. If you have good root to them, they will actually become a plant on its own. So there's a number of fans here. There's one there and one there. That all could be divided and made into new plants.
And you can transplant that somewhere else in your yard for next spring.
Yes, or give them to your neighbor.
Sounds like a lot of good information there, Doug, to help this is continuing the process of getting your yard ready for when fall rolls around here with the next little while. Doug, any more tips for this morning?
Nope, I think that's it. Next week we'll talk about what to prune back for the fall and what not to.
All right, sounds great. We're going to have all this information online at dakotanewsnow.com after the show. Make sure you stick around. We have Fastcast coming up next.